Hello and welcome to another episode of Pickle's Garage. Today I'm going to be removing the ugly AC heater box. I don't have AC anyways, so don't really have any purpose to continue having this in the car. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this out. It looks deceptively simple to remove. I know when I first started it, I never really imagined where it would go. I figured it was all kind of in there and then maybe it would just be on this other side of the firewall, but in reality, the engine, or motor rather, is pinched between this panel and the inner fender here. So in most cases, in most videos, they're gonna have you basically remove this, which is not really going to be all that simple. If you want to worry about whether this is going to be lined up and have people at car shows tell you that it's off for the rest of your life, or maybe you want to spend a few hours trying to shim it properly, then you could probably remove this. But I'm going to go ahead and remove the inner fender. The inner fender actually seems to be a little easier. This is a 1979 Camaro. It seems easier than earlier years. I don't know if they anticipated more people were going to stop needing their AC or what, but essentially earlier years, like this fender goes under the tray and you have to remove the battery tray, and there's more bolts down here and all that. But when I was looking at it, it didn't seem like it carried on. It looked like they cut it right here along that way. So it should be less bolts to actually remove this fender, and that's going to expose the motor that's kind of down here in this region. So I'm going to go ahead and start removing the fender itself. And then we're gonna kind of locate some of the bolts down there, remove those, and then get the easy ones up top and get this bad boy out of here. So stay tuned. Alright, so now we are under the panel here, under the car, and I'm gonna start showing you some of these bolts. Hopefully I can stay in focus here. Let me take it out a wider angle. There we go. So most important thing with all these projects is just to stay organized. I love to put the bolt exactly back in the same spot that it was. Just an OCD thing maybe, but I'm gonna go ahead and keep these organized exactly in the order I did it. So we're gonna start with this one and kind of go around. We got 2 there, 3, 4, 5, and then see, yeah, the paneling kind of cuts away. So that is the other side of our reservoir for our tank, for the radiator. So I'm gonna go ahead and take those off. So that's 2 more there. It looks like we have one here, a couple more down here, pair of those, and then yeah, along that wall. And then here's where it gets a little bit more beneficial for these 79s. If you have an earlier model, it appears as though the fender continues on, and it goes like under the actual battery tray, and there's different bolts that you have to do. But with this, it appears as though it is cut away along this line. So it should be a little bit easier to remove some of these later models. But if you do have a 2nd gen, but it's an earlier one, I believe this is going to continue on almost under these. And you're gonna have to remove those as well, remove your tray and all that. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling these off, and then we will go from there. All right, so 7 bolts so far that came off. These 2 are part of the fender on the outside, and then I still have 3 more of those down here. These 2 are the ones on the inside, right there. I got these 2, which ran along up here. This one was kind of hard to get out for whatever reason. I mean, not for whatever reason, but the fender started to shift, and so it like screwed all the way out, but then it went wonky. So you'll just have to put some pressure on here, or be more strategic with the ones that come out. This one was kind of goofy as well. It's actually up under here is where it went through, and so you're gonna have to have a socket on the other side, unless this is an aftermarket, which it almost kind of looks like it. So I guess it depends, but I just have the last 3 to do. But at this stage, I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the wheel itself so I can get the fender completely out. So I'm gonna do that while it's on the ground, start loosening these, jack it up, pull off the wheel. So next time you see this, it should be removed. Okay, as you can see, it is mostly off. So you can actually see that is the motor back there. I can, in theory, start to work on removing this. But you may be wondering to yourself why it's still on here. Well, it turns out it is pressed to this other metal piece. And so even though you can clearly see that it is a separate strip, they have connected it to the battery tray. So it almost looks like this was modified. So maybe it was always supposed to be part of the tray, and therefore yours probably is also connected to the tray. So as much as I could probably get away with doing this semi, shoddily, I guess I'm just gonna have to remove these bolts. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start on those. I am going to remove the battery just so I don't have to wait on this thing, and then we'll go from there. But apologies if yours looks like the battery tray hasn't been replaced and it is a connected piece, because then that was completely false, because it does appear as though I'm gonna have to remove these bolts. Darn. Alright, so it is out. So there are 3 bolts along here that you need to remove, and then there's other bolts right here that you need to remove, and then this is part of the tray, so I'll show you that real quick. So naturally I gotta take out the battery. There's a few bolts associated with that. This is the tray itself that the battery sits on, so everything you normally have to do to disconnect the battery plus the hold for the battery. These 2 go in through here, and then these 2 are actually up underneath through the bottom of the tray itself. So once you get rid of those, it exposes those bolts I pointed over on the fender. They're gonna be right down here, and then the 3 that are right there. But it is out, as you can see. All right, so here is the box, of course, on the top. And down here is your actual motor. So I almost feel, no, because you'd have to take that off anyways. I was gonna say, I almost feel like you can go through here, but you wouldn't be able to reach any of those bolts from the outside. So yeah, looks like 1, 2, and that goes through the firewall, so we're good. Another one there, probably one on the other side. I'm gonna assume some up top. I'm gonna do some vacuuming because it is gross in here, and then yeah, and then your normal stuff up top. So I'm gonna go ahead and start removing the obvious ones here, and I will let you know what I run into. But I think from here it's gonna be mostly self-explanatory, so let's go ahead and start yanking it. Okay, so should have all the bolts. There are 6 plus 2 nuts for at least mine. And this is pretty much ready to come out. It's pretty completely loose, so I think it's just resting a little bit on the header and then the back of the valve cover there. But I had to cut this just because it was so rotted, it was ripping off anyways. But that's probably gonna have to stay, so that'll probably slide out this way, or at least it'll need to. Disconnected all the wires. It was pretty much self-explanatory, just unplug here, unplug there, and then there are 3 in here, 1, 2, and then 3. So like I said, pretty much ready to go. There are 1, 2, 3 up here, 4. There was another one about 2 inches back this way. I came up from the other side of this frame straight up, and I was able to see it from there, and I basically had my actual drive through here. This is kind of my setup, just a smaller ratchet, an elbow, and then all these are 7/16 for the size. Everything that was inner fender related was a half. And then there was one more on the other side. Here, let me come back up. On the other side of this plate down here, I thought I could get a wrench straight down. I ended up once I removed my header here, I was actually able to get to it because it's just below that flap here. But I was able to go straight down through in there. And then there's one of the nuts. And then that was a ground I had, and another one here. And that is about it. So I believe I'm gonna have to take off the valve cover to get the rest of it off here. I'm gonna try and jimmy it, and then I'll just let you know if I have to take off the valve cover, but I'm pretty certain. But again, hopefully next slide, this will be completely removed. Okay, well, it is officially out. So now I just have to buy the cap for it, but effectively I had to take off my little vacuum ball here to get a little extra clearance. I didn't end up having to take off my valve covers. I definitely didn't want all the debris that you can even see on the valve cover in my engine. And so what I ended up doing, after one last look at what it looks like without, is I did have to take off the little excess that I still had on that pipe. There was like a fitting around it as well that I unscrewed. There's 3/8. But got that out. So what I ended up doing was, this actually breaks in half. I can't really tell you if it was easier or not. I think if you took off the valve cover, if you just had clearance to begin with, you'd probably have the exact same result. The issue was that the bolts actually were through this side, which, if you remember when it was actually in the car, is like facing towards the engine. So I was able to get the top two easy, the lower one okay, third one okay, but these underneath ones were basically up against my my header. So I ended up taking a pair of pliers and just twisting the other end of the screw itself. Once I got enough of a gap, I just took some like a little mini crowbar, or maybe even screwdriver you could probably use, and just breaking it. And so once I got it off, this piece slid out, and I was able to twist the rest out. So that is taking out your heater and AC components. I mean, there is so much more room. It was always a dread, because as you can see, I wrapped my headers. It was always a dread having to like take these out and put them back in, and then it would end up like shearing what my work was. And so it's going to be really awesome to be able to maybe redo this and slide it back in with ease. So I'm going to go ahead and pop my vacuum ball back on. I'm going to order the part for the plate there, which is apparently super easy. It just goes right back into the fittings that you see there. And I'm going to be good to go, clean up a little bit, and yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good one.